I want to introduce not only a fellow warrior and a fellow author, but one really good God-fearing woman. She called me one time, said that, my story, I think we need to get it out. I might want to write a story or something. She says, how do you do it? And I said, I don't know. She said, well, you wrote 2 books. And I said, I don't mean nothing, So I told her the same thing my editor told me. You want to write a book, you put your butt in a chair and type. That's why you write a book. So here we are. We have books. And Shelley and I we met, 18 years ago or something? I don't know. 10? Okay. See, I don't remember stuff. 10 years. Chris here is a warrior. He should be the poster boy for cancer survivor warriors right here. When you hear his story and you see the pictures and you know what this entire family went through, when I say faith, family, and facilities, there's your example of family right there. Because I guarantee you, Chris would not be here today without the sacrifice and the dedication that his family put into it. He'll tell you that. I say the same thing. Any cancer survivor will say that. So, anyway, with further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend Shelley Harper, fellow author, and one heck of a good caregiver. Please welcome Shelley Harper.
Good evening, everybody. And let me know if you can't hear me and I'll use the microphone, but I'm planning on not using the microphone. So I just wanted to thank you, Jim, for having us tonight. We love Jim and Sandy so much, and we have known them for about 9 years, just after my husband's cancer diagnosis. They're dear friends of ours. Very, very, very honored to be here because I know that he loves every one of you so dearly, and he would not have just anybody in here because he looks out for you big time. I just also wanted to introduce my book, but Jim already did that. So Chris and I decided early on that if we could help one person with our story, we wanted to do that, and that's why we sat down and wrote the book. I'm going to also start with a quick joke, see if anyone knows the answer. What is the best way to remove peanut butter from your hair? Does anybody know? Ice cube, gum. I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said peanut butter.
What is the best way to remove gum from your hair?
I told you peanut butter. That's why you got stuck.
Okay, well the nerves are gone, so that's
Okay,
good.
start all over because everybody's up.
Okay, what's the best way to remove gum from your hair?
No.
That's a good guess, but the answer is cancer.
Amen to that.
Okay. We in this room, we all have one thing in common. It's the elephant in the room, the big C word, cancer. We didn't ask for it, but here we are. And God has used our story to bless and inspire others by giving us this platform. We ask God to use us, never dreaming that it would put us as a member of this group. Our book isn't just a cancer journey, but it's actually a beautiful God story. And the thing is, we all have a story. And one day, I hope that I can hear your story. And I know there's a lot of stories in this room that are beautiful God stories as well. Jim mentioned earlier the 3 F's, faith, family, facilities. And in regards to faith, for us personally, it touches a nerve because that's something that we really relied on to get through our journey. Hebrews 11:1 states, "Now faith brings our hopes into reality." Hope being the spark that starts the fire. Without hope, there's nothing to wish for, nothing to cling to, and not hope in a perfect outcome, but hope and faith that our Creator has our back and that we can truly trust Him with our life's journey. Faith is a choice. We wake up each day and we get to pick how we're going to do life that day. Are we going to be victims? Are we going to be victors? That's up to us. And joy is the simplest form of gratitude. Karl Barth. We wear our faith on our faces. If you looked in the mirror right now, would you convince yourself that you were full of faith? We have to fight for it. 1 Timothy 6:12 says to fight the good fight of faith. That signifies to me that having faith isn't easy or automatic. But that man sitting in front of me right there, as I watched him walk through his cancer journey with absolute faith, it was apparent and obvious to anyone around him that he trusted in God's plan for his life. Watching him walk through cancer and all of its twists and turns taught me more about faith than any sermon that I've ever heard. Is having faith a guarantee? No, of course not, because God is sovereign and we are not. But faith ensures that you have hope during your battle. And who knows, you just might inspire somebody else. Family. Our family truly discovered it is possible to look for the good in the cancer journey and to look at all the blessings that come out of it. Most of my family's sitting right here tonight. Thank you guys for coming. What are you looking for in your journey? What are you focusing on? The cancer journey is not a fun one, as we can all relate to, but we can make it more fun, more tolerable. My husband, in particular, he even ran away one time, which I'm about to read to you, a portion of my book, for those who haven't read it yet, including several of my children, so that's fine. They have no choice but to listen now. The chapter is called Running Away. Excuse me, gotta get my glasses on. I'm getting old, Jim, which is a good thing. I'm excited about that. Days and nights went by in a blur while we did what we were supposed to do to fight this cancer, by showing up to every single appointment. But now, when I would call Chris's name, he would respond as if in slow motion. It scared me to think I might be losing him. Then things took a drastic turn. I knew Chris was resting, but I came to talk to him about something the kids needed. Be quiet, he said. I thought that was rude, and I just kept talking. Next thing I knew, he flew into a rage, the likes of which I had never seen. He erupted from the bed. He punched the bedroom door. Then he began flinging dresser drawers. Imagine the Incredible Hulk throwing a tantrum, but in slow motion. It must have been the steroids. He was on some very heavy doses. The thought that it might affect his behavior this badly had never crossed my mind. I remember being so incredibly scared. My 2 middle sons were home at the time and ran to the bedroom doorway to see what the ruckus was. I grabbed the back of both of their shirts. One of them sitting in this row right here is a pretty big kid. And grabbed and jerked them out of the house, into the garage, and into my car. We drove away. That was the lowest moment of my life. I probably could have handled it better, but I had to get away. He's a very strong man, even when weakened by cancer. Out of his mind, high on the chemicals, I had no idea what he might do. I called Josh. He's also sitting in the room. Bawling into the phone while the boys and I drove around the neighborhood trying to figure out what to do. Josh sped home to help. He got there just in time to see his dad pulling out of the driveway. Chris had absolutely no business behind the wheel. He couldn't see out of one eye, was mentally slow, and hadn't been driving for months. Josh tried to stop him, but he outran him by speeding away and disappeared around the corner. I was a wreck. Somewhere out there was my husband, out of his mind, weak, tired, seeing out of one eye. He wasn't answering his phone. He'd left all his medications behind. We called his best friend, and he convinced us to call the police. The kids and I split up and drove around trying to find him, and the kids were freaking out, understandably. Jared, my youngest, wanted to jump out of the car because he didn't feel that his daddy loved him anymore. Josh, on the other hand, wanted to find his dad and then fight him for all the chaos he was causing. Joya and Jordan just tried to help with the search. I couldn't relate to what he was going through, and I didn't have much sympathy for him at this moment. We kept calling him and leaving messages, not realizing that he'd left his phone at home. A couple hours into our search, I had gotten a voicemail from him. He'd apparently bought a track phone so that we couldn't trace him. I guess his Marine Corps skills came in handy that night. I just can't take it anymore, his message said. I'm going to go to the woods for a couple of weeks. Tell my doctor to pound sand. I'm not going to have any more chemo dumped into my brain. He also told me he wanted a divorce, which really stung. I now know that this was his dysfunctional way of not wanting to put me through any more. One moment, I was so angry with him. How could he do this to us? Then 2 seconds later, my heart would go out to him. I miss him. I'm so worried about him. Will we ever find him? Or will he stumble around in the woods and freeze overnight? He's in no condition to be out anywhere. It's pouring rain. He's weak, cold, wet, and tired. The cops asked if I wanted to file a missing persons report. I decided to wait it out overnight and see what the morning brought. When I went to bed that night, I said a prayer for my runaway husband. Lord, he's your problem tonight. Please be with him. Keep him safe. Let him be okay. In Jesus' name. There was nothing else I could do, so I rolled over, completely at peace, and went to sleep. I knew somehow that God was watching over him and that everything would be fine. That night, I had the strangest dream. I dreamed that I was the one with cancer in my brain. The dream was so real. When I awoke, I had nothing but compassion in my heart for him. The next morning, I called his oncologist. Is it okay that Chris has run away in his current condition and is lost somewhere in the woods? I asked him. No, the doctor barked in his Croatian accent. It is not okay. We need to effing find him and immediately get him to the hospital. I then called the police to go ahead and file the missing persons report. This way they could actually look for him and safely bring him in. Without this, he was just some guy who just decided he wanted to get away from his home life. As soon as I hung up with the police, my phone rang. It was Chris. He didn't say much, only that he was coming home. I canceled the missing persons request and waited for my husband. He drove up, got out of the car, stumbled into the house, and went straight to bed and slept until I woke him up for the ride to the hospital. This time he went compliantly, knowing he wasn't really going to stop the chemo, knowing he really did want to survive and get better. In case you're wondering where he really went that night, he went shopping at Walmart in Sandpoint, and his plan was to get somehow into Canada and go to the woods. He attempted to buy fishing supplies and camping gear. He must have looked pretty crazy in his condition because people kept looking at him and asking if he was okay. Then he looked outside, saw the pouring rain, ditched his basket full of supplies, and went to the nearest hotel for a good night's rest. The poor guy just needed some peace and quiet. He probably never should have been at home in his current state in the first place. Hindsight is 20/20. This trip to the hospital was much more somber. I think Chris knew that this time he wasn't going to be able to sweet talk his doctor into letting him out early. We checked him in and the doctor met us in his room. Yet another round of chemo began. This time, the doctor and I talked about keeping him in the hospital as long as possible. No getting out early for good behavior. Chris needed rest, care, and sleep, the three things he wasn't getting enough of in the midst of a bustling summertime household. And truthfully, I needed a break too. The hospital stay this time lasted about 3 weeks. Thankfully, he got a slight fever, which enabled the doctor to keep him in the hospital. I was so relieved. We could be normal at home and he could be a cancer patient at the hospital, getting the care he needed. I didn't miss a single day of visiting while Chris was hospitalized, that dozen times or so. Not one single day. I mainly watched him sleep, but on occasion we would walk the halls or talk, listen to music, or cry together. That night he ran away could have gone so differently. He could have gotten into a car accident. I could have decided I'd had enough. The kids could have done something stupid out of confusion and frustration. Chris could have hurt himself or one of us. God was definitely with us that night. We knew we were getting close to going to Seattle for his bone marrow transplant. So I put a call into the doctors for advice regarding chemo in Chris's brain. They agreed that he had had more than enough, so they advised stopping the brain chemo treatments. This is a portion of my running away chapter, so thank you for listening to that. I'm well aware that there can be some pretty dark times, but each of those instances proved to bring us closer together as a family and gave us a really interesting chapter. As a family, we don't tiptoe around the tulips anymore. We communicate, we love hard, we laugh at everything we possibly can because we've seen a dark side of life. And when it comes to facilities, our doctor fought like hell for us. We believed in him because he believed in us, and he knew he could fix Chris. And for us, the story still continues to be a story of faith, of forgiveness, of redemption, of grace, joy, hope, generosity, of laughter, as well as a story of chaos, disaster, suffering, and hurting each other. Because this is real life. It's messy. It's not just a straight line all the time. 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of thing. But you never quit. You press on. You believe in hope against all the odds. You fight until you can't fight. And then you let those who love you fight. We did a lot of our fighting on our knees. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're all calloused. Writing a story about a family cancer journey is very vulnerable. You find out that your story inspires some, and it offends others. Some folks don't like the rawness, the realness in our cancer story. But even Jesus, my Savior, had his real moments in the Garden of Gethsemane and on the cross, where he felt the overwhelming darkness of his situation. But I didn't write the book for those people. I wrote it for cancer warriors and their caregivers and their families who know how quickly all the BS goes out the window. Like my husband, Chris, who was told he had 2 weeks to live almost 10 years ago. And as Jim would say, once you get a cancer diagnosis, it's life or death. It's heaven or hell, baby. There we go. It's where the rubber meets the road. No more time or energy for all the meaningless, petty things that others find so important. I call them first world problems. In many ways, our cancer journey is still ongoing, and it's one grand adventure. I choose gratitude. This I learned from my husband, Chris, when he was told he had 2 weeks to live. He said it was the best day of his life because he knew God either had more plans for him and would help him beat cancer, or that soon he would be in the arms of Jesus. And he considered this a win-win. How do you not write a book about someone with that attitude? It's more than just having a glass, It's more than just having a glass half full mentality. That's important, don't get me wrong. But it's a knowing deep in your soul that you're in greater hands. Since our family is kind of an open book, I'm going to set the stage for a very funny poop story. I don't know if it's all cancer patients or it's just Chris, but we have quite a few of those. We were in Seattle getting treatment for his bone marrow transplant, and he had developed a condition called graft versus host disease, which meant that his body and the new stem cells were kind of fighting each other. He developed a skin condition, I think I said that, and he was getting treatments that were like sunbed visits, and he had to take this lime green medication, and somehow that was supposed to fix all of this. Well, unbeknownst to us, he also was in the middle of he had gotten C. diff. I don't know if any of you know what that is. And really, it's when your immune system is really down and you don't really know you have it until you get explosive diarrhea. And we were at our little appointment, and our technician's name was Terry, and we used to see him, 3 times a week or whatever. We were chatting with Terry. Next thing I knew, Chris said he had to go to the bathroom. No big deal. I mean, that's normal, right? So Terry and I were chatting along, just having a grand old time, and Terry looked up and said, well, Chris has been gone for quite a while. And I thought, oh, yeah, I guess he kind of has. Yeah, you're right. He said, well, do you think we should go check on him? And right about that moment, Chris barreled through the door. He wasn't dressed in the same clothes that he was in when he left. Would you like to share this part of the story in only Chris fashion?
Sure. So the sunbed visit, what was it, about 5 or 6 minutes? It looks like a tanning bed, but it's not real hot. It's not like you fall asleep and you're in Hawaii or something. But it's supposed to help your skin. And I'm laying in this bed. I could hear everything talking, and Shelley and the doctor. And my stomach starts cramping up. I'm like, it felt like a nuclear bomb in my stomach. I'm like, oh man. And they gave me a horse pill. It was like bright green. I don't know what the heck it was, but it didn't agree with me very good. So I'm thinking, okay, I got about 3 minutes left. I better just squeeze it and hold on, because I just slammed that bed open as soon as it shut off, and I ran out the door. Found the first bathroom. It's a hallway. It's basically a hospital, so it's all shiny floors and, very clean. So I'll try to open the door. It's locked. And by this time, I'm just, I'm not, it's funny now, but was not then. And so I start pounding on the door harder and harder. And they're like, we're almost done. Hold up. I'm like, no, you don't understand. So I finally opened up. And I didn't even know if it was a lady or a guy, but I grabbed the thing, and they were out in the hallway because I was in that thing. So I closed the door, and by that time I didn't make it. And the floor was messy, and I was like, oh my God, how humbling, because it's nothing you can just bear and grin and stop it. So I got naked and went in the sink and started washing. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm, having hot flashes, like, oh my God, how embarrassing, And I'm thinking Shelley's going to come rescue me about, a minute or two. About 20 minutes goes by. I'm cleaning all the floor. Oh, no. I basically got my stuff all clean. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go in wet clothes. So I started looking in the closet, and I saw like 4 or 5 doctor coats, short ones. I'm like, do I dare go there with nothing but that, my butt hanging out? I'm thinking, I'm going the hallway, and these security guards are going to chase me and say, this guy needs to go to, crazy man or whatever. And I ended up finding that coat, and then in the laundry, they had a little basket, thing where it's laundry. So I put on somebody else's pajama bottoms and went back to the room, and she goes, where have you been? I'm like, I've been waiting on you. Don't you think I really need some help? So we have some funny. That's just one of tons of them. So unfortunately, it does change your habits on going to the bathroom. But we try to laugh about it. It wasn't very funny when I did it, but.
He was not a happy camper, and it was all my fault, of course. No. I should have read his mind and knew he pooped his pants in the bathroom.
You were having a great conversation. Can you tell that?
I was enjoying a few minutes of just conversation with a normal human being that didn't have cancer. That sounds harsh, but read the whole book and you'll understand.
Yeah.
We're a lot like
we made it.
We made it, and we're a lot like Laurel and Hardy or The Odd Couple, and if we can get through cancer, anybody can. Right?
Well,
kids.
Hopefully, have a good caregiver like this kid. She's a sweetheart. She's there every day. So,
I had a good
helps
patient.
a lot with that. The Lord watching you every day.
So true. Okay, I'm going to finish with something that you're very familiar with, but I love it so much. What cancer cannot do. Cancer is so limited, cannot cripple love. It cannot shatter hope. It cannot dissolve faith. It cannot destroy peace. It cannot kill friendship. It It cannot suppress memories. It cannot silence courage. Cannot invade the soul. It cannot steal eternal life. It cannot conquer the spirit. And all I see in this room are a bunch of warriors. And we know what you're going through, and you can do this. You can do this together. And I just thank you so much for letting me share. And if you have any questions, this is a good time to anything. We're an open book, so ask away. Anything you have about cancer or about our book or just in general, or we can talk later, but it's been an honor to share with all of you guys. Thank you so much.